Hello, everyone. This is Maggie Velasquez, the Dyslexia and Literacy Intervention Specialist for the Department of Education. Thank you so much for joining us for this assessment video series, where we will showcase the universal screeners and vendors who have been approved to meet the needs of the Move On When Reading and Dyslexia legislation for the 2022-23 school year. Although this video series does not replace the extensive training provided by each individual vendor, the video series gives a brief overview of each approved screener and may also be used to assist schools in making a universal screener selection. It was well put by the International Dyslexia Association. Screening measures, by definition, are typically brief assessments of a skill or ability that is highly predictive of later outcomes. Screening measures are designed to quickly differentiate students into one of two groups. One, those who require intervention, and two, those who do not. A screening measure needs to focus on a specific skill that are highly correlated with broader measures of reading achievement, resulting in highly accurate sorting of students. The following Move On When Reading and Dyslexia legislative requirements can be found at A.R.S. 15-704. Each child who enters grades kindergarten through third will receive a universal literacy screener within 45 days of entry, as well as screened during the winter and spring benchmark periods. This benchmark data will be submitted to Move On When Reading team by October 1st, February 1st, and June 1st, which follows the normal Move On When Reading requirements. Each approved vendor has been through a rigorous vetting process by Arizona Department of Education Request for Information procedures. Each vendor provided extensive and technical information to make sure their products met the requirements. The submeasures here are broken down by grade level. You will hear directly from the vendors how their assessment tool measures each of these indicators. Universal screening tools should be administered by individuals who have taken the minimum training deemed appropriate by the vendor. All assessors should also follow the vendor's specific guidelines and recommendations for valid implementation. It takes deliberate and additional training to accurately interpret and analyze screening data. It is important to remember that screening alone does not diagnose dyslexia. Richard Selznick best reminds us, dyslexia screening is a tool for identifying children who are at risk for this learning disorder. This means screening does not diagnose dyslexia, rather it identifies predictor variables that raise red flags so parents and teachers can intervene early and effectively. Universal screening of all students is an important first step. Now I will turn it over to one of Arizona's approved vendors.
Hi, my name is Danielle Sullivan, one of the National Directors at Curriculum Associates, and I am excited to announce the Arizona Department of Education recently named Curriculum Associates iReady assessment as approved Universal Literacy and Dyslexia Screener for the 2022-23 school year. With this approval, schools across the state can use the online diagnostic and offline literacy assessment tasks to screen for risk factors of dyslexia and help provide data-driven instructional support to students in grades K through 3. At Curriculum Associates, we do everything with a core set of values, including saying it like it is, we embrace all, low ego, high integrity, high quality service, and we truly measure our success by the impact we have on students and educators that we serve. We have over 10 million students across the country utilizing iReady, and it makes up about 25% of all K-8 students in the United States. Students like Lucy and Elijah and Danielle, iReady is going to give you exactly what they need and help educators know where they need to go to grow. When you can utilize valid, reliable data, it helps you address the essential prerequisite skills that students have and might uncover any potential unfinished learning. With iReady, data is your engine. In one comprehensive assessment suite, you have the universal screener, growth monitoring, standards mastery, as well as a series of offline reading tasks to help support your students understanding what they need for reading in grades K through 3. It all starts with our adaptive diagnostic. It is a K-12 universal screener for reading. It is adaptive with over 8,500 standards-aligned questions. It provides actionable insights and recommendations for educators. At iReady, we don't assess it unless we give you a plan to address it. We assess students in all of these domains down to a sub-skill level in reading. iReady is an assessment suite that educators can trust. We've been given excellent marks by third-party reviewers, including the Bureaus for Center for Testing, National Center on Intensive Intervention, and independent validation of our assessment items. But this is the most important piece. We help educators quickly gather data so they can get to the important business of teaching students. We help them analyze, determine the needs, group students, gather resources so much faster so they can do what is most important in helping students learn. So let me show you exactly what we can do with iReady. With one login for educators and one login for students, you are looking at the ease of iReady Connect. When you log in, we want to make sure that you have the data that you need at your fingertips, including links to action. When students complete the diagnostic, educators can have the results instantly. Let's go ahead and look at the domain placements and the data you get as part of the diagnostic suite. We have colors that are very easy to understand and read. Red, students that are 2 or more grade levels below. Yellow, students that are 1 grade level below. And green, students that are on or above grade level. Educators then asked us, they wanted a little bit more depth and insight into how students are performing. So we added a 5-level placement where you can also see students that might be 3 or more grade levels below and students starting the year mid or above grade level. When you scroll down, you're able to see the power of the data that we offer at iReady. It is criterion reference data with the ability to also understand how students are performing against other students in national norms. Criterion reference data is comparing students' performance to grade level standards. So when you're looking at the results, you can see this is a 2nd grade class. These students are an overall 1st grade level. When you look across the different domains of reading, they have a very different picture of what they can do and what their actionable next steps are. You also can compare students with their peers, and you can view how students are performing with Lexile levels with a drop of a click. So I'm going to go ahead and select one student. Every student who takes the diagnostic, you will have a personalized roadmap for their success. What you're looking at is the student diagnostic results report. You'll have a first where students are performing, then you have this green area, which is the grade level band, and we added a green line, which is the target line. So if students can reach that line, that would be considered on grade level at the end of the year. Now, how do we get them there? We have 2 types of growth targets. Typical growth is the growth we've observed that students could grow in one academic year. However, it's been a really challenging couple of years. So we also have a 2nd type of growth target called stretch growth. Stretch growth is aspirational yet attainable growth target, and we're recommending setting goals with students around stretch growth. Now, if Dean is able to get his stretch growth, Dean would be considered grade level by the end of the year. So how do we get them there? As you can see exactly what Dean needs. So we're going to click on this arrow, and we want to start with what does Dean know? Dean is able to decode regularly spelled 1-syllable words with short vowels. And that is part of the Arizona standards. So we can see what standards students know, and then we look at the actionable next steps for instruction tailored to each student. Not only do we tell you what they need next, we also give you some resources at point of use. This is called a tool for instruction. It is a PDF designed for an adult, teacher, family member, paraprofessional to utilize a skill. This is not meant to just be handed to a student. These resources really help adults lead one or small groups of students around a very specific skill. They're located directly at point of use. So not only can you see your class's overall performance, you can see what students need down to a subskill level. You also may be wondering, how should I group my students at the beginning of the year? We group your students based on how they did across the K-12 spectrum of standards. Not only do we group them, we also tell you how they performed and then give instructional priorities for those groups. This report's really helpful for intervention time or thinking about your class grouping at the beginning of the year as a whole. Not only do we tell you the skills they need, we also give you ways to address it. We give you more tools for instruction linked here at point of use. And again, these are designed for an adult to lead, to teach, but they include very explicit instruction, step by step, a check for understanding, and some of them even have graphic organizers. These resources are available both in English and in Spanish. iReady, a powerful assessment system, gives you data at your fingertips. All of the reports are interactive, real-time reports, and as I showed, tied to next steps and instructional resources. Now, to go over how we support you with offline reading tasks, I'm going to invite my friend Pete to talk all about the dyslexia screener and how that works, and including our offline reading tasks to support you understanding where your students are performing in grades K through 3.
Thanks so much, Danielle. And yep, over the next couple minutes, I'm going to go through the 4 steps that you need to follow to use iReady assessments to address Arizona's universal literacy and dyslexia screening requirements. As you're probably already aware, Arizona's Move On One reading legislation is designed to identify those struggling readers and provide them with specific targeted interventions so they're reading at or above grade level by the end of 3rd grade. As you might not know, though, there's been a lot of recent legislative changes across the state, and some of those are now requiring screening of all kindergarten and 1st grade students for characteristics consistent with dyslexia. All of this legislation has been folded into the Move On One reading framework, and iReady can address all of this. Now, there are some literacy assessments out there that are fully digital, but unfortunately they don't give educators direct visibility into the literacy needs of students. There's a whole bunch of other assessments that are also out there, but that are fully teacher administered. They're one-on-one experiences, but unfortunately these reduce time for instruction because it takes so much time to administer them one-on-one. iReady offers both strategies to address Arizona's requirements. We have a digital assessment through the iReady diagnostic, which assesses literacy concepts that are best measured digitally. And then we also have offline assessments through the iReady literacy tasks that measure those skills that provide valuable insights when administered one-on-one. Those literacy tasks are relatively new. We've got over 200 brand new one-on-one administered tasks for the 21-22 school year, and even more tasks coming for next school year. So let's talk about those 4 steps that are needed to address Arizona's universal literacy and dyslexia screening requirements consistent with Move On One reading. The first step is to have all students in grades K to 3 take that iReady diagnostic for reading. The next step is to have students take offline tasks. The third step is to identify those students who may be displaying indications of or areas associated with not meeting benchmark goals for grade level literacy. And then finally, you have to follow any additional guidance provided by the Arizona Department of Education or your local school district to support those students who are identified as being below those benchmark cut scores. So let's go into each of these 4 steps in a little more detail. That first step, again, was to have all students in grades K to 3 take iReady diagnostic for reading. The great thing about having them do iReady diagnostic reading is that it fulfills a whole bunch of Arizona screening requirements, including those for phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, the correspondence between sound and letters, and the sound symbol recognition requirement for grades K and 1. Also, the diagnostic fulfills state requirements for comprehension in grades 1 through 3. You're probably already familiar with the diagnostic. Over 100,000 students took iReady diagnostic in Arizona last year alone. It covers grades K to 12 for reading and mathematics. As the graphic here shows, it's adaptive with over 8,500 standards-aligned questions in the item bank. It provides a whole bunch of actionable next steps with teacher resources, so you're not just testing students, you're also giving them the instruction that they need. It takes about 45 minutes to complete each of the 2 subjects. And it has a whole bunch of key features, including the growth model, growth monitoring, and the iReady tools for instructions. After students have taken the diagnostic, the next step is to have them take offline tasks. Let's go into a little bit of detail about these offline tasks. There are two types that are available within the iReady system. There are benchmark tasks and progress monitoring assessments. The benchmark tasks are those that would be used as part of Arizona's screening requirements, and then also available to you as part of your license are the progress monitoring assessments that can help you monitor the progress as you provide interventions to students. All of these offline tasks are available through iReady as downloadable, printable PDFs, and they're administered one-on-one to students. As they're being administered, teachers would score those assessments, and the results can be recorded offline through fillable PDFs or online through the iReady Connect system. Again, this is all included as part of your iReady diagnostic for reading license. It's recommended that all students in grades K to 3 be administered the tasks that are outlined in this section of the video to meet Arizona Universal Literacy and Dyslexia screening requirements. A lot of folks ask how often these tasks should complete, and the Arizona Department of Education has provided guidance on this. They've indicated that Arizona students who enter K to 3 are going to be given a Universal Literacy and Dyslexia screener within the first 4 weeks of school and will additionally be screened during the winter and spring benchmark periods. As mentioned earlier, there's over 200 iReady literacy tasks across the 8 task types available to you as part of your iReady diagnostic for reading license. But you don't need to administer all of these as part of Arizona's screening requirements. In fact, you only have to administer a small number of them. Let's go into a little more detail about which need to be administered and when. Before I do that, it's important to note that all of the recommended tasks are considered developmentally appropriate for the grade and time of year at which we're recommending they be administered, and all of them, of course, have been approved by Arizona Department of Education for this state screening requirement. It's also important to note that for each of these tasks, we have multiple forms available, and anyone who's administering the tasks is encouraged to use a different task for each administration to the extent allowed by local administration guidelines. All of the tasks listed for a given grade and time of year should be administered to students in order to meet Arizona's screening requirements. For kindergarten, we recommend in the fall that 2 tasks are administered to students. An iReady literacy task for rapid automized naming of objects, which addresses Arizona's rapid naming skills requirement, and the iReady literacy task for pseudo-word decoding fluency, which addresses Arizona's nonsense word fluency requirement. In the winter, we recommend a rapid automized naming of colors task and that pseudo-word decoding fluency task. And then in the spring, rapid automized naming of letters task, and again, that pseudo-word decoding fluency task. For first grade, we recommend a rapid automized naming colors task to address that rapid naming skills requirement, the pseudo-word decoding fluency task to address that nonsense word fluency requirement, and the iReady literacy task for word recognition fluency to address Arizona's oral reading fluency requirement, which kicks in at grade 1. In the winter, rapid automized naming of letters, pseudo-word decoding fluency, and a passage reading fluency benchmark assessment. In the spring, again, letters, pseudo-word decoding fluency, and that passage reading fluency assessment. For grades 2 and 3, only one task is recommended to meet Arizona's requirements, and that's the iReady literacy task for passage reading fluency. And again, you'd administer that benchmark form. The question we get is, where can educators get these offline tasks? Well, they're all available right within the iReady system. Anyone with an iReady diagnostic for reading license would simply click on Assess and Teach, Assessment, and then Early Reading Tasks and Oral Reading Fluency Assessments. It's important to note that for the 22-23 school year, this is going to change to iReady literacy tasks. The third step is to identify those students who may be displaying indications of or areas associated with meeting benchmark goals for literacy or for grade level literacy. To help educators do that, we've established cut scores. Students who score below these cut scores may benefit from early intervention to address reading difficulties. We've got 4 different types of cut scores that vary by the task type. For the iReady diagnostic, we have overall cut scores and domain-specific cut scores. For the literacy tasks, we've got benchmark scores. And for the literacy task for passage reading fluency, we have word correct per minute benchmark cut scores. Let's talk about those iReady diagnostic overall cut scores. To make it easy, we've created something called the iReady reading difficulty indicator. Students who are below the iReady reading difficulty indicator may benefit from additional instruction or intervention, And students below this cut score probably need assistance with phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, correspondence between sounds and letters, and sound symbol recognition for grades K and 1. Those cut scores are available on the screen, as you can see here, in our guidance materials for Arizona, and available as part of some of iReady's exports. If you want a little bit more detail specific to individual domains, we have cut scores for those as well. You can look at those cut scores for grade K who tested in the fall by looking at scores below 295. For any other student in any other grade, simply look at our iReady reports to see if they are identified as having a red or a yellow score. Here's the iReady diagnostic results report for a student. You can see on the right-hand side, highlighted with the red rectangle, some of the domain level scores where students are yellow, which means that they're performing below grade level in those specific domains. And at the bottom of the report, we again have that yellow indication for the score that flags the student as potentially needing additional assistance or intervention. All of the iReady literacy task cut scores are available right in the teacher task packet, and each of those is located or indicated as being the below level cut. For the iReady literacy task for passage reading fluency, those benchmark assessments that I mentioned earlier, all of those cut scores are located in the Passage Reading Fluency Administration Manual in the words correct per minute percentile range. You just have to look at the scores that are below the level that's indicated as meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. Now finally, we've come to that fourth step. Follow any additional guidance provided by Arizona Department of Education or your local school district to support students identified as below benchmark cut scores. Once a student has taken that diagnostic and any of those required tasks, educators should evaluate the areas in which a student scored below the cut scores noted above, and then determine if the student needs any further evaluation or support consistent with state guidance or local policy. Any additional guidance on how to provide support for students who score below those benchmarks is available in the Universal Literacy and Dyslexia Screening Guide for Arizona's K-3 schools and districts. Thanks so much for taking a couple minutes to learn about the 4 steps to address Arizona's Move On when reading literacy and dyslexia screening requirements. All this information is also available through guidance, available directly to educators through the iReady system. And if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your iReady account manager.
All iReady district partners have ongoing access to Curriculum Associates' award-winning customer service. This includes dedicated support via the company's customer service team, professional development experts, account managers, sales representatives, and technical support team, as well as access to our free educator portal, iReady Central. With Curriculum Associates, Arizona schools and districts, as well as the Arizona Department of Education, have a partner who understands that real change and student growth that moves the needle on achievement does not happen through magic. It takes carefully planned work, and at Curriculum Associates, we would be honored to be your partner in that work. Day after day, our team wants to be an active partner to make sure that we're doing our part to help Arizona teachers and in turn their students succeed, grow, and thrive. Thank you so much for watching.